What happens when one of television's most outspoken hosts tries to ambush a beloved Hollywood legend on live TV, only for it to spectacularly backfire? Today, we're breaking down the explosive confrontation that left Joy Behar scrambling to regain control of her own show, while Johnny Depp delivered some of the most devastating, measured responses ever caught on daytime television. Stick around, because if you want to see a master actor dismantle a talk show host's credibility in real time, this is the moment to witness. And don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment with your thoughts on how it all went down. For months, The View had been struggling with ratings. The producers were desperate for a viral moment, something to get people talking. When Johnny Depp's publicist reached out about a possible appearance to discuss his latest film, Behar saw her opening. She had been vocal about her opinions on Depp's personal controversies in the past, and she was convinced that a confrontational interview would be exactly the kind of drama the show needed. What the producers didn't realize was that Behar had gone completely off script. The interview was supposed to focus on Depp's return to filmmaking and his creative process, but Behar had other plans. She spent the night crafting what she thought would be a series of gotcha questions, designed to catch Depp off guard and create the viral moment she craved. When Depp walked onto the set that morning, the audience erupted in applause. He looked relaxed, genuinely pleased to be there, waving to fans and acknowledging the warm reception. His charm was immediate enough to win over even the skeptical crew. Behar, on the other hand, was practically vibrating with anticipation. Longtime viewers recognized that look, the same expression she wore whenever she was about to launch into one of her infamous rants. The other co-hosts exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unsure of what Behar had planned. As Depp settled into his chair, Behar wasted no time. The moment the cameras rolled, she leaned forward with predatory intensity and said, "Johnny, let's be honest. You've had quite the fall from grace, haven't you? From beloved pirate to Hollywood pariah, that's quite the journey." The audience gasped. This was not the warm introduction anyone expected. Depp's publicist shot a worried glance at the producers. But Depp, he remained calm, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth, as if he had anticipated this exact ambush. "Well, Joy," he replied, measured and controlled, "that's an interesting way to welcome a guest. I was under the impression we were here to discuss film. But it seems you have a different agenda entirely." Behar pressed on, misinterpreting his calm as defensiveness. "Come on. You can't seriously expect us to ignore the elephant in the room. Your reputation is in tatters. Your career is basically over. And yet, here you are, trying to make some kind of comeback. Don't you think the public deserves to hear you take responsibility?" The tension in the studio was palpable. Cameras zoomed in on Depp, expecting discomfort, but instead, they captured something far more compelling. His expression shifted from polite interest to amused disappointment. "Joy, I have to ask," Depp said, his voice carrying that theatrical charm he's famous for. "Did someone hurt you this morning? Because the level of hostility you're displaying toward someone you invited onto your show suggests you're working through personal issues that have nothing to do with me," the audience murmured. A few chuckles rippled through the studio. Behar's face flushed, but she was far from backing down. "Don't try to turn this around on me," she snapped. "I'm asking legitimate questions that any journalist would ask. You've been involved in very public legal battles, and people want to know where you stand." Depp leaned back, completely relaxed. "Joy, I've been in this business for over 3 decades. I've sat through thousands of interviews, from respected journalists to tabloid reporters. And I can tell you with absolute certainty what you're doing right now has nothing to do with journalism. This feels personal. And I'm genuinely curious why." The other co-hosts squirmed. One tried to interject about Depp's upcoming film, But Behar cut her off with a dismissive wave, determined to continue her line of questioning. Personal. Behar laughed, though it came out forced, strained. Johnny, everything about your life has been personal and public for years. Asterisk, you can't have it both ways. Behar pressed. You can court the media when it suits you, and then act like a victim when the questions get tough. Depp's smile widened, a glimmer of respect or amusement crossing his face at her persistence. You know what, Joy? He said, calm, measured. You're right about one thing. I've been in the public eye a long time, and I've learned a few things about people. For instance, when someone is this determined to make another person look bad, it usually says more about them than their target. The studio fell silent. Every eye was on him. The audience was completely captivated, hanging on each word. Behar realized she was losing control, but instead of backing down, she doubled down. Are you seriously going to sit there and lecture me about character? She demanded. Before she could finish, Depp raised a hand polite, commanding. Joy, I'm going to stop you right there, he said, his voice calm but edged with authority. I think we've reached the point where you need to decide what kind of show you want to run. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crew seemed frozen, unsure if they were witnessing brilliance or a disaster. Behar's mouth opened and closed, grasping for words that wouldn't come. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Depp leaned back, his composure unwavering, his voice gaining a quiet edge. You invited me here under the pretense of discussing my work. But what you really wanted, he continued, slow and deliberate, was to create a moment. You wanted to be the person who finally broke Johnny Depp on television. That's your miscalculation. You underestimated who you're dealing with. Behar's voice sharpened. Defensive? I don't know what you think you're implying. But I'm a professional journalist with decades of experience. I don't need to create moments. They happen naturally when people are honest. Depp's tone softened, carrying a trace of amusement. Journalist, he repeated, raising an eyebrow. Joy, with all due respect, you host a daytime talk show where you and your co-hosts discuss pop culture and politics. That's entertainment, not journalism. And the fact that you're trying to hide behind the guise of journalism to justify what is clearly personal, that tells me everything I need to know about your character. The audience leaned forward, captivated. What began as an awkward ambush was evolving into a masterclass in composure under fire. One of the co-hosts attempted to redirect the conversation. Johnny, maybe we could talk about your new film and what drew you to that role. Behar cut her off, firm and unwavering. No, we need to finish this conversation. Her voice carried the determination of someone still convinced she could reclaim control. Johnny seems to think he can come on this show and turn the tables by attacking me personally, but I'm not going to be intimidated. Depp chuckled a genuine laugh, not mockery. Joy, I haven't attacked you personally. I've simply pointed out that your approach is unprofessional and motivated by something other than genuine. Curiosity about my work. If you call that an attack, you're only proving my point about this being personal for you. Behar's face flushed, her voice rising. You want to talk about unprofessional? Let's talk about someone who thinks they can waltz back into Hollywood after everything that's happened and expect people to just forget. Depp's voice dropped, soft but cutting, carrying through the studio with clarity. There it is, he said. Now we're getting to the real issue. You're not upset about my work. You're upset about me? You're upset, Depp said, his voice calm but piercing, because you've decided I should be punished. The fact that I'm still working, still creating, still being invited onto shows like yours, that bothers you personally. His words landed like a punch. Behar sank back in her chair, struggling to find a response that wouldn't confirm his point. Her co-hosts avoided eye contact, visibly uncomfortable with how far this had gone. "What's really happening here?" Depp continued. "Is that you've appointed yourself some kind of moral arbiter for the entertainment industry. You decide who deserves redemption and who doesn't. And you're frustrated that the rest of the world doesn't agree with your judgment." Behar exploded. "Don't you dare psychoanalyze me. I have every right to ask tough questions. And if you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." Depp's voice dropped to a near whisper, carrying over the stunned silence of the studio. "Joy, I faced tougher questions from real journalists who knew how to ask them without making it personal. What you're doing isn't tough questioning. It's mean-spirited, and the fact that you can't see the difference is deeply concerning." The camera captured every flicker of her expression: anger, embarrassment, and something that looked dangerously close to panic. She had expected anger or defensiveness from Depp, but not this. He was dismantling her approach systematically while remaining perfectly composed. "You know what I think happened here?" Depp said, addressing the audience as much as Behar. "Someone told you that aggression makes good television, and you confused aggression with intelligence. You thought if you came at me hard enough, I'd crumble, and you'd look fearless. But ambushing a guest on your own show isn't fearless, it's cowardly." The studio went utterly silent. Even the co-hosts seemed transfixed. Behar glanced around, searching for support, but there was none. "I want to ask you something, Joy," Depp continued. "When you prepared for this interview, did it occur to you that I might be a human being with feelings? Or did you just see an opportunity to score points by attacking someone you thought was vulnerable?" Behar opened her mouth, but no words came. The silence stretched on, and it was clear she had lost control not just of the interview, but of the entire situation. Finally, Depp leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. "Joy, I came here to talk about my work, to connect with your audience, to have an intelligent conversation. Instead, I've been subjected to what feels like a personal vendetta disguised as journalism. Your viewers deserve better than this, and frankly, so do you." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Behar sat frozen, her usual quick wit nowhere to be found. Every second of silence made it more obvious that she was out of her depth. The cameras captured every micro-expression, every flicker of panic. A producer waved frantically, signaling for a commercial break, but Behar ignored it, too proud to take the lifeline. Instead, she made her fatal mistake, doubling down. "You know what, Johnny?" she said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. "You can sit there and act like the victim all you want, but everyone watching knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You can't charm your way out of the truth forever." The moment she spoke, something in Depp's demeanor shifted. The patience, the almost amused tolerance, vanished, replaced by a cold precision that made everyone in the studio lean in, alert. When he spoke again, the weight of his words cut through the tension like a knife. "Joy. I want you to listen carefully, because this is important," Depp said, his voice calm but unflinching. "You just accused me of being a bad person on live television without offering a single specific example of wrongdoing. That's not journalism. That's not entertainment. That's defamation. And the fact that you think you can do that without consequences tells me you've been surrounded by yes people for so long. You've forgotten how the real world works." Behar's face went pale as the weight of his words sank in. She glanced desperately at the producers, searching for a lifeline, but found none. Depp continued, measured and deliberate. "Here's what's tragic about this. Today, you had an opportunity to have a real conversation with someone who's spent decades in this business, someone who could share insights about creativity, resilience, the craft of acting. Instead, you turned it into a cheap shot fest because you thought it would make you look tough. All you've shown your audience is that you're willing to sacrifice basic human decency for a viral moment." The audience was riveted. A few nodded in agreement. Behar's eyes darted around the studio, searching for rescue, but even her co-hosts avoided her gaze. "I want to address your audience directly," Depp said, turning toward the cameras. "You deserve hosts who treat their guests with respect, who ask thoughtful questions, and who are genuinely interested in conversation, not conflict, for its own sake. What you've witnessed today is what happens when someone mistakes cruelty for courage." Behar's voice broke as she shouted, desperate, "How dare you lecture my audience? This is my show, and I'll run it however I see fit." Depp's reply was devastatingly calm. "Actually, Joy, this is the network show. It's the sponsor's show. Ultimately, it's the viewer's show. You're just temporarily in charge. And based on what I've seen today, I suspect that arrangement might not last much longer." The look of horror on Behar's face told the story. The rumors about declining ratings and advertiser concerns suddenly had context. His casual mention of her precarious position struck a nerve. "What we have here," Depp continued, "is someone who's become so comfortable with being mean, they've forgotten how to be anything else. You built your career on saying what others wouldn't. Somewhere along the way, you confused honesty with cruelty. And now, faced with someone who won't be intimidated, you don't know what to do." Behar stood abruptly. Her chair rolled backward, nearly toppling a stage light. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this," she shouted. "Actually," Depp said, calm and commanding, "you do. You invited me here. Unless, of course, you want to walk off your own show, which, I suppose, would be one way to handle the situation." Behar froze. Walking away would be admitting defeat. Staying meant enduring a public dismantling. She slumped back into her chair and made a weak attempt to regain control. "We're going to take a commercial break," she announced, voice trembling. "No," Depp said firmly. "We're going to finish this conversation first." The power dynamic had shifted entirely. Even the crew seemed to be taking orders from him. Cameras kept rolling as Depp delivered what would become one of the most quoted moments of his career. "Joy, I want you to remember this," he said, voice carrying theatrical weight. "I want you to remember what it feels like to realize that cruelty has consequences. Someday, when you wonder why people stopped taking you seriously, why your show faltered, why your friends stopped returning calls, you'll think back to today and understand it all started with your decision to be needlessly cruel to someone who came in good faith." Behar finally broke. Tears streamed down her face. "Cut the cameras. Cut them now. This interview is over." But the damage was done. The studio erupted in chaos, producers scrambling to salvage the moment while Depp sat calmly. A man who had just delivered a masterclass in handling a bully. Within hours, the footage would be online. And by the end of the day, Behar's name would be trending worldwide for all the wrong reasons, in trying to destroy Johnny Depp's reputation. Joy Behar had destroyed her own. The rule of television had never been clearer. If you're going to try to take down a master performer, be prepared for them to perform right back. What did you think of how Johnny Depp dismantled Joy Behar? Did she get what she deserved, or did he go too far? Drop a comment below and let me know. And don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of the most explosive moments in entertainment.